Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. This is Essence of Medicine. Today, we're talking about the most dangerous sport in the Olympics. I'm Amanda Armagost.
And I'm Dr. Bassi for Essence. Thank you for joining us. Let me just first of all say that all sport at some level can be dangerous because especially in the professional sport, you get yourself to a limit of what a human body can do, right? You set some new records or something.
Right.
But um, how did you come up with this title, Amanda?
Well, the Olympics are going on right now. I'm not watching them. I'm not really a sporty person. It's the Summer Olympics hosted in Paris. There's a lot of drama around it, both because of Paris and their people and not. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about some current events.
I think as you are used to it, I'm going to go not this time, not millions of years back, but I'm just going to go back about 2,500 years back to talk about the Olympics. How can we talk about the Olympic, not talk about the origin of it?
Right.
So, what is this? Do you remember what the symbol of Olympic is?
Yeah, it's five rings, different colors.
Yeah. Do you know what they are, what that means?
No.
There are the five different original sports that they were in the Olympic originally, you know? Do you know what they were?
I'm was the Olympics originally in the winter or the summer?
No, no. Well, there was no Winter Olympic.
Okay, so
But
I'm going to
Greece,
guess.
we're talking about Greece. These are Greeks, and there is no Winter Olympic in,
Okay,
in Greece.
I'm guessing racing by foot is one of them, and something like fighting on horses, another one.
There were the original Olympic sports, or the original. I'm just going to Google it, but all of that comes from fighting. So the sports, they are from this young man showing what a good warrior they are. So um, one of them is throwing a spear, another one is throwing a javelin, another one is jumping because they have to jump over trenches, another one is wrestling because they have to wrestle somebody and kill them. So they are all practically sports that they hone their skills at being warrior and killer. Um, and they are obviously from Athens, but some of the sports are actually from all over the Greece, including Sparta. Now, there is an interesting thing about the Spartan sport versus Athenian sport. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the history of Greece and Athena, Athens, Sparta, Macedonia, and so on. I'm not sure how familiar are you with that, but
Subconsciously, I'm much more familiar than at the surface because sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep, I listen to Greek stories, like Greek god stories for children.
very interesting. They are very interesting. And lots of Greek stories actually personified there. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all of it.
And
I
that's
like I
all of
said, I
it.
do it when I'm going to sleep. So
So, Athens was the brain of the old Greece. Sparta was the muscle, and eventually Macedonia became the strongest group of people there. But in Sparta, the muscle of the Greece, they were brutal people. When a boy was born, an elder would look at the boy, physically look at them to see if they are worth to live. If they weren't, they would go to a cliff, literally throw them off the cliff, the baby. If the boy has any deformity and so on, they would throw them off the cliff. Because they are interested only in warriors. That's all they are interested. As a matter of fact, they were Spartan and then they were so-called hoplites. The hoplites, they were like slaves, almost like slaves. As a matter of fact, one of the coming to age of a Spartan was they have to go and kill a slave. That was the rite of passage for them.
Wow.
When these boys were 3 years old, they were taken from their mother. From the age of 3, they were trained. All those Olympic sports, they were training for these babies. And one of the important thing is, at least for a period of time as well, they trained the girls.
What were they training the girls to do?
On the same things, on the same sports.
Okay.
Okay, so this from the very young age, they were trained to be warriors, they're sport people, but their sport was aimed at creating warriors. As any sport is today, is to build physical strength, correct?
I don't think every sport today is to build physical strength. No.
But every sport then was to build physical strength.
Then, yeah.
And physical strength that is relevant to make them a better killer. What is it? Being stamina, to be able to run. So running was always part of the original sport.
No horse events?
I don't believe horse events, they were part of the original sport. I have to look it up because most of the Greeks, they didn't fight on horses. And that is where you need to know the story of Greeks, okay? The original fights, they weren't on horse. Cavalry wasn't part of, as a matter of fact, the Persian Empire had the cavalry. The Greek didn't fight like it. They fight as a coherent group and then protect each other. The horse wasn't part of their fight style.
Okay.
Long spears, javelin, and so on and so forth, they were. So, now, but let's go back. These are young kids, almost from age of 3. They are trained to be killers. They come together in a place, and the thing that you can say about the Greek, they were very, very liberal in a way that being gay or lesbian, that was an absolutely normal thing for them.
Well, and I also think it's cool that the women, like at the start of the Olympics, the women already had their own events. So it's not that they were just totally discluded. Like a lot of times women are at new things.
Yeah. And so, and as a matter of fact, and it was harsh. Like Olympic training is harsh now. It was even harsher then. No mercy. And people used to get a lover, boy lover, like boys used to get a boy lover, girl used to get a girl lover. If somebody wouldn't perform, they would punish the lover. So, harsh environment, Sparta. Now, Athens did it a little more civilized, in a little more civilized way, but all that discipline and so on is taken from the actual, from the Spartan sports. And I'm actually trying to get the on internet, what are the Olympic original sports? And I'm just want to tell them, and then you understand why they are all fighting things. Original Olympic sports. Not even marathon was part of it, because marathon was added later on as a, I'm not sure if you know what the origin of marathon is.
Yeah,
Marathon
the
is right now
stadium race of 600-foot race by foot.
no, 600-foot race is not the marathon.
No, but that's the original sport.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Call them. What are they?
Well, this one, what was the original sport in the Olympics? The
Mhm.
stadium race, which was a foot race that's 600 feet long.
To fight, run, and fight in the battlefield and kill. Okay, go next. What's next?
So foot races, jumping, discus.
Jumping over the trenches. If there is like they put these trenches with spikes and sharp things, you have to jump over them. Okay, go
Yep.
next.
Discus throwing.
Discus throwing. Okay, what can become more big, like a sharp disc that you throw to chop off
Frisbee.
people's, huh?
Like a frisbee.
No, it is not a frisbee. I can guarantee you that. The disc has a sharp edge and you throw it to cut people when you throw it. It's a actually metal disc. It still is.
But isn't like frisbee throwing part of the Olympics right now?
Frisbee, I don't know about the frisbee, but disc is a integral part of the Olympic. Okay.
Javelin throwing,
Okay, well, it explains self-explanatory. What else?
wrestling.
Wrestling. Yeah. No, javelin, and then later they put a spear, javelin or spear. It goes more or less together. So that 600 meters or in the stadium running in the battlefield, limited. And then you just called all those five. Later on, they added.
Well, there's more.
Okay, but
These
later
are
on,
the,
go
but
ahead.
these are because then there's also the pentathlon, which is all five combined as
Yeah, that
one
is a
challenge,
variation of all five. Okay, go ahead.
and then boxing.
Boxing came much, much later. Wrestling, I think it was wrestling is what the ancient fighters used to do. Trying to punch each other, and the wrestling that they would do is different than the wrestling that we understand today. Now we have Greco-Roman wrestling, we have freestyle wrestling, and whatever they did wrestling, that was more like a freestyle, just punching and wrestling. The wrestling for them was more like a everything allowed kind of wrestling, not the wrestling that we understand. That wrestling developed to three different disciplines: Greco-Roman wrestling, freestyle wrestling, and then obviously the punching wrestling, which is the boxing. Okay, but all of them skills that a warrior that fights with their hand. Right now we fight with guns, obviously that's different. But all of them, their fights, they were skills that enabled somebody to be able to be better soldier. Now, understanding that, then I think it makes sense to come back and talk about which one of them is more dangerous. But before we do that, I want to tell you the history of marathon. So for a long time, obviously the Greek states, they were city-states. Most of the time they were in fight with each other, that each city would be a partner with another city to kill the people of the other city. So it wasn't really a unified Greece for a long time until Alexander came. He actually, for the first time, unified the entire Greece peninsula. And what's important is to know that Greece wasn't just what we consider Greece today. It was most of today's Turkey was part of original Greece. Now it become interesting. Greece is these people like Sparta. They enslaved most of their own people. They killed them as a rite of passage. Then Athenian with philosophers and so on. Macedonia, rising star and so on. Thebes, that is almost everybody gay, and they even call it the Brotherhood of Thebes, meaning they were Brotherhood of Thebes. They are fighters and so on. They were in a turmoil. They were in war. They were part of Greece that, like when we talk about Troy, like Helen of Troy, that part was actually in today's Turkey. That part was more peaceful, but there is a reason for that. They were under Persian Empire. Most of the Turkey part of the Greece, they were under Persian Empire. And the Persian Empire, the important thing about was, if you guys don't know, go listen to the podcast and the discussion that Dr. Roy Casagrande in Austin present beautiful history of old Greece. Now, in the time the Greeks were mostly killing each other and enslaving each other, Persian Empire had rules, regulation. They would build the temple for Greece, because when they would then some area would be admitted to Persian Empire. They could speak their own language. They could practice their own religion, and the Persian Empire would build their temples. They were on the protection of Persian Empire.
Wow.
And go listen to Ray Casagrande, okay? That is a beautiful presentation of the ancient history. Now imagine Spartan, the wild people who kill a person as a rite of passage. They come to one of those areas they were still Greek. They go to the Greek temple, they desecrate the temple, and they would kill the priest and so on. And Persian Empire, by decree, has to support and protect them. So they came and start the war against Greeks, because the Greeks of the main Greek today, they went to today's Turkish Greek people, desecrated their temple, they killed them and so on. And then there were these the wars, multiple wars and so on between Persian Empire and the Greeks and so on. And so for everybody who has watched the 300, the Persian are depicted as this tall, naked, pierced, black guy becomes the Persian king. And if anybody has seen the 300, you know what I'm talking about. Because the racist Western hegemonial thing, it's naked, it's gay, he's black. It personified the Persian king as anything that Western culture considered as bad. Okay, but in truth, the Persian, they're civilized, that protecting the other Greek from savage Greeks. Now, by the way, there were many, many wars. Only in about 3 of them Greek won. But they have made 20 movies about every single time that the Greek won, and not a single movie about all the 300 other times that the Persian won.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right, yes. Now, in one of those, Persian troops come to a shore, and the Marathon, the name of the guy, he runs all the way back to Athens, tell them that the Persian have landed. And that distance from the shore to Athens was 26 miles or 40 kilometers. Hence, marathon. Marathon is running the same distance from that shore to the Athens. And that was added as additional sport to the end of the Olympic Games. As you know, marathon is the end of the Olympic game, because that was the end of the sport. Sport is done.
That's cute.
Yeah, very cute. Not for marathon though, because the story is that he died after that run. He gave the message and he died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So it's
I
kind
know.
of like an honor. An
Yeah.
honor.
Well, whatever it is. Now, what is more dangerous now? A marathon, or because the marathon is the only one that the guy actually died. Now, if you are going to talk about what is the most dangerous Olympic sport, I would say the one that it's really one-to-one, the wrestling. Because in all the others, you're fighting against the nature, against the gravity, jumping, running, and so on. But in the wrestling, which then went to these 3 disciplines for a reason, you're fighting against another person. You're trying to knock them down, knock them out.
Yeah, my research said that boxing is the most dangerous sport at the Olympics.
And because they separated in 3 groups, that there are rules in the Greco-Roman and even freestyle, there are certain rules to make it less dangerous, because people used to die of those things, break
Like
their
what?
neck. Well, all this wrestling that they
No.
used to do.
What are the rules?
Oh, you're asking about what are the rules on the different kind of wrestling?
Yeah, because I've always wondered, like, why do people do that? No, I'm actually specifically asking about boxing rules. I understand that there is a difference between wrestling and boxing, so I want to focus on boxing. Like, what are the rules to make it safer? Why would someone want to get punched in the head multiple times?
So what is special about American wrestling?
Are you asking? I think the answer you're looking for is that it's a show.
It's a show, but imagine if it wasn't a show.
I think also in wrestling, there's rules. Like, you don't punch in wrestling. You
But
bring people down.
But the original wrestling of the ancient Greek, it wasn't many, there weren't many rules. Imagine that was just taking down your opponent. However, you can take them down, because you remember this was a simulation of war.
Right.
If you're in a war, you're not going to say, I'm not going to punch you in your balls or in your head, or I'm just not going to go below waist and so on. No, obviously that makes it extremely dangerous, right? Once we become more civilized, we didn't want our sportler, our athlete to die. So they separated that and put rules to make it safer. So like, I think in one of these wrestling, you cannot go below the waist. The other one, you can go below the waist, but you cannot work on the head and so on. And obviously in the boxing, you don't touch, you just punch and so on. So that wrestling got separated in 3 different areas. And certainly when you start punching people in the face and in the head, certainly that makes it more dangerous than anything else. If you remember, you and I, we were in Louisville in the Muhammad
Ali.
Museum. Do you know what Ali, what medical problem Ali had to deal with at the end of his life?
Yeah, didn't he have brain damage and it was making him
Parkinson.
shaking?
Yeah, he had a very severe traumatic Parkinson. Like these people, now I can just tell you, just in average, every time you get punched in your head, you lose 5 million neurons. 5 million neurons are dead after each punch. And depending on where those neurons are, you get the dementia, and you get if you have it in the brainstem, and when you make this motion, when you get punched, and literally you get this additional motion in the brainstem, the substantia nigra, that's a part of the brain that is for our coordination. If the neurons there die, you can not control your motion. That is what the Parkinson is.
Yeah, I know that sports put in special rules actually, so then you don't get damaged as bad in your brain. Like for instance, hockey, you can check, men can check each other, but you can't check from the back because they don't want people damaging their head and their spine.
Yeah, there are these rules to reduce the damage. So practically, Muhammad Ali, because of this multiple, continuous, traumatic events, had obviously dementia, but as well a loss of neurons in a certain area of the brain that we call substantia nigra. It's called substantia nigra because if you cut the brain in that level, that area appears to be dark after coloring.
Oh, got it.
Yep. That's called this nigra, meaning black. Okay. So, and that's what they found, that he had severe damage and then had traumatic Parkinson. We know from lots of other sports like football that they have this multiple traumatic event that they have even a name for it. They even made a movie about it. And Will Smith played the main character, an African doctor who emigrated to the United States, who found out on all these football athletes that they have this similar kind of brain damage before they die. They become aggressive. They become they cannot control their emotion. They cannot control their movement and so on and so forth. Guess what? He was ostracized. His life was made to live in hell just because he came out with this information.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right. Isn't it a pattern? Do you see a pattern there?
Oh, there's definitely a pattern there. Unfortunately, someone has to be the person to bring new information.
And that is something you told me a while back.
Yep.
Somebody has to be the person, and that person always get ostracized.
Yep.
It's a very good movie. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. I forgot what the name was, but it is with Will Smith, and it's about this traumatic event in athletes, the footballers, that they're miserable, and the system, they chew them, they get all the advertising money out of them, and then they throw them in trash. Very, very good movie. But so coming back to the most dangerous sport in the Olympic, I don't believe there's any question that boxing with multiple hit to the head certainly makes that the most dangerous sport in the Olympic.
What's the like general age of boxers in the Olympics?
Well, it's a very good question. Let's talk about general age in any category of sport, because I think there's a lot of information that's even related to what we do, a spine, that tells you. One of the questions I'm asked as a spine surgeon is, if you fuse my back, how much motion will I be losing, and so on. And the answer to that is, for most of people, you won't notice anything at all. There is the podcast we made. It's called A Natural History of Spine. I recommend to everybody to go and watch it. We make a graph there. Now, that graph is about the mobility and the function of our joint and spine. You remember that, Amanda, we went through that. What is the peak of our body's elasticity, mobility, function on our joint and spine? What age?
12 to 16.
12 to 16. 14 is practically about where it is. And that's what
I already know what you're going to say. What's the age of Olympic gymnasts?
Same age group. But why aren't the footballers? Why aren't like American football, soccer, all the ball players? Why like all the javelin throwers and so on? Why is only the Olympic gymnastics are so young, but most of the other sports like now shooting, archery, soccer, American football, baseball, why are they not 12 to 16? Why are they in their early 20s mostly? As a matter of fact, most of them at the peak of them is at 24. Why?
I think they need to build their strength.
Partially, maybe, but you can build it from 14 to 18. You don't have to be in 2024 to build that. It's our brain. See, for all those things that you need additional strategy and core strategy and technique, your brain need to be mature enough, and that's where the maturity of our brain is at 24. That is the best brain you probably will ever have at 24. And then after that, you see, that is the peak where you have still enough physical strength and elasticity and compliance, but as well the maturity of your brain. And that is why most of those athletes are in their 20s. In their mid-20s, they perform the best. Now, coming back to that, elasticity of our spine as well is maximum at 24, at 14. After that, it goes down. By the time you are my age, you don't really use not even 20 to 30% of your maximum that you had when you were in your teens. Now, when you have a problem, additionally to that, you are limited because of the problem. So if we take that problem away, most of the time, even though we fuse that segment, you don't have that problem. Now you can use the other segments. You actually become more mobile. So for that reason, when my patient asking me, doctor, if you fuse my back, am I going to lose function? And my answer to that is not unless you are an Olympic gymnast. You don't even notice it. But if you are an Olympic gymnast, you will notice every little piece of I'm taking away from your mobility and function of your spine because you're using all of it.
Of course.
So coming back to that, talking about the most dangerous, that's how we started that. It is most likely sport that will cause permanent damage is boxing. And in some countries, even boxing was forbidden for a while, like in Iran. Boxing was forbidden as a sport because of that. And I know that that there is American wrestling is most of it is show, but people still do get injured in that.
Yeah, they get injured in that for
But-
sure. But a lot of that, like the chair throwing, the jumping up on the whatever you call the square that you're in, that's definitely a show. I think if
What
they're
is-
getting injured, it's because they're being too crazy.
Now, what is the average age of American wrestler?
They're kind of old. Well, because they're not really wrestling. They're playing around. They're just being like Hulk Hogan. What is he, like 70?
No,
He
they're in their
wrestling that long ago.
the youngest I know that they are meaningful. They are in their 30s or mid 30s, and then they go up. But mostly they are in their 35 to 50, 35 to 45. Most of the time they have to learn to do all of that, not to hurt each themselves and the other party. That is why they need a lots of experience to learn to do all that show without hurting somebody. That's why they are so much older. Does that make sense now? Why they are so much older?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they have to learn it. This is you have to have a lot of experience to do all of that. You have seen how they are doing, how realistic it appears, and so on. You need experience for that.
Definitely. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people, they're good actors. A lot of people still think it's real.
When was the time you figured out that is not real, Amanda?
Are you actually asking me that question? Do you think I've ever in my life watched one episode of fighting?
It's nothing more American than American wrestling.
No, not. I never cared if it was or wasn't real. So it was never something in my head that I was like, are they really throwing that chair? So
I think in my 20s that I figured out that's all a show. So, so what else do we need to talk about? I think we wrapped it up pretty good.
I think we wrapped it up. Thank you
Okay.
guys for watching. This was Essence of Medicine, and we talked about the most dangerous sport in the Olympics. I'm Amanda Armagost.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.
Thank you. Okay.
You want to do another one or are we done?
Yeah, we can do like how you see the world.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
You want to send me again a link or should I?
You can just send the link, but type Essence of Life, how we see the world for
Okay.
the title.
Okay, give me a second.